Here's your host, Tony Femino.
Thanks so much for tuning into this edition of Voice to America, the radio program where you find out what the world thinks about you and the issues that are important to you. We hopscotch around the globe, talk to regular people just like you and me in the hot zones. We hear their stories, and then hopefully we can connect the dots. We've been busy today. We're broadcasting live on this Easter Sunday, so no matter where you're listening to us, happy Easter. And we broadcast on all major holidays, not just because we like doing the program, but because, as our regular listeners know, major holidays are opportune times for America's enemies and frenemies to exploit the situation. We are following the developing story out of Pakistan, for instance, where it appears there is a massacre of Christians celebrating Easter. The death toll when we started the program an hour ago, and I think we first reported it about 45 minutes ago, stood at 50. It's now at 63. And we'll have more coming up in about 15 minutes on this story, but a suicide bombing in a park area near Lahore in Pakistan. And nobody has claimed responsibility for it yet, but by all appearances, the purpose of the people being at the park, why they congregated there, was to celebrate Easter. So that should give you an idea. And of course, with the obvious problems that Pakistan has, and there are many, you can connect the dots until we get confirmation. But that's always what we're doing, trying to figure it out. Because the thing about it is when any type of official response or explanation comes out, the Pakistani police or military or government comes out and says something, and again, that's always their version, and they're going to protect themselves. That's their job. Their job is to say what happened and then spin it up so that they look as good as possible and they don't have to take any responsibility for it. Our lead story today was the ISIS attack in Belgium. And as we said, and again, this is lost by popular media. They haven't gotten to this yet. I mean, this attack happened 4 or 5 days ago, and they still haven't figured out, to me, which is the most important piece of information to come out since the attack. I mean, of course, the most important information is, what happened, who did it, how many people are dead. Okay, that's fine. But once you figure that out, and you can figure that out within a matter of hours, the most important information after that is the change in the institution. And the institution being the politicians, the security services, and they immediately said, we screwed up. That's what's significant, because nobody takes responsibility for anything, certainly in the West. The idea is it's not my fault, or this person did it, or that person did it, but not me. But one thing that did happen all pretty quickly, not immediately, but pretty quickly, was simply, the police said we could have done a better job. We screwed up. The politicians are saying, we screwed up. And everybody knows it. That's why it's so obvious. But everybody plays the game. There's nothing really wrong here. There's nothing wrong, nothing to worry about here until it's too late. I mean, gosh, that is the story of 9/11. Osama bin Laden was yelling and screaming, trying to get America's attention, saying, I am at war with you. Al-Qaeda is at war with America. But we're like, come on. Who's this guy living in a cave? Well, what's Al-Qaeda? Yeah. And even after he bombed the World Trade Center the first time in the early 90s, no big deal. Again, not a tipping point. Blew up and killed many people and injured many, many more U.S. embassies in Africa. Who Osama bin who cares? Al-Qaeda what? It doesn't matter. Blew up the USS Cole in Yemen. Al-Qaeda who? Osama bin Laden what? Finally, he did 9/11. That gets our attention. Now it's like, okay, now everybody's got to learn who this guy is. Now everybody's got to play catch up and understand what happened, but it's not my fault. It's his fault. It's not the FBI's fault. It's the CIA's fault. It's not CIA's fault. It's the National Security Agency's fault. It's not the military's fault. It's this. This is what we do. And so when these attacks occur, and what happened in Belgium, for instance, we knew what was going to happen in Belgium. I mean, that's one thing that they did a good job of. The popular media, the politicians, the security services, they did it even after the attack just a few days ago. They're saying, it's terrible what happened, but guess what? It's going to happen again and again and again. We have no answers for this is basically what they're saying, because our institutions don't solve problems anymore. All they're trying to do is manage problems. And this is what's important. And we saw this why Obama didn't do anything in Cuba about Belgium. He made a quick comment and then went on with a baseball game and his speech about Cuba and basically, ignored what happened in Belgium. And the reason why is because it wasn't spectacular enough of an attack. And I agree with that. I've said that all along, just like San Bernardino. It worries you. We know it's a mounting problem. I think Churchill's words were, there's a gathering storm. But we know we live in the highest level of comfort here in the United States. Europe is the same way. We're fully developed countries. We like our comfort. We do lots of things. We drug ourselves. We distract ourselves. We have lots to enjoy so that we can forget what's really going on around the world. A lot of places they don't. They can't forget. Pakistan's one of those places. There are some people that can live at a high level, but people, they worry about food, they worry about shelter, they worry about their education, they worry about all kinds of it. We don't really worry about that here in the United States. Most of us say, look, I got Netflix, I'm going to go binge watch, some show tonight, and I'm going to gorge myself on fast food, and I'm going to drink, a 12-pack of beer, or it's Easter, let's saddle up to the buffet, and let's go do an Easter egg hunt. That's what the people do. That's just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that's our level of living in America and in Western Europe. So when you sit down and say, do you really want to sit down and grapple with what's going on with terrorism that's right next door? No. It's going to take a lot more to get people to grapple with that. We can distract ourselves very well. We've become very efficient at distracting ourselves in the United States and places like Europe. We are live streaming right now. So if you have been tuned in for the last couple of minutes, great. Welcome. I know it's Easter Sunday. Maybe we've got some new folks that are listening. We got the camera set up. I can see the little video screen. If you're just tuning in right now, we continue to find new ways to send out the program, hopefully improve. And we always want your feedback, whether you're getting it, it sounds good, looks good, whether you like it, you don't like it, or other ideas, we'll try to include it. So if you want to watch the video stream of this program, we don't have dancing girls. We don't have pictures. We could probably bring that in. I mean, it's just me, I guess, and we'll have some voices here in a little bit, but something different. Another way to capture the information. You can go to our Facebook page right now. You can link up at voicetoamerica.com and you click the little tab there and you can watch us stream on our YouTube channel. We asked also that if you have a question, topic you want to bring up on the program, we'd read one of your questions during the video segment. And let's see, John has emailed in, and he's told, and I know John's one of our regular listeners, so thank you, and you'll contribute a lot. So John writes in, the administration has claimed that it killed a high-ranking ISIS leader this week. Another person will take his place and may be more ruthless than the one we just killed. Why haven't we bombed their refineries and cut off their ability to finance their jihad? So that from John via Facebook. So thank you, John, for writing that in. I would say this, my reaction to seeing that question is that what's significant about this is two things. What John said is right, is the idea is this really a good strategy? Is the idea to kill, the head of the snake, to go after, one leader or two leaders, number one, number two, number three. Is that an effective way to do it? Or would it be to go after their economic base, for instance, or something else? Like I've said, take Mosul. That's another way that's what I project for ISIS in Iraq, take Mosul. But the other thing about it is by all reports, and again, because we have so little reporting, this is coming from government institutions, the killing of the number two ISIS leader in Syria was done by ground forces, U.S. forces on the ground, the special forces, the surgeries that we've been talking about. It wasn't done by a drone, for instance. It wasn't done by a bomb from the air. There were forces on the ground that actually got them. And I think that's significant too, because again, Obama is very careful. He doesn't want anybody to do anything with boots on the ground. I mean, he hates the word boots on ground. So it's always advisors, it's special operations, it's surgeries, it's in and out, but it'll never be boots on the ground. Again, politicians, those in power, always trying to change the definition of words, trying to rewrite history, and it's just an attempt to fool you. If you're ignorant and you don't pay attention, that's what happens. If you try to pay attention, you catch him, you hold him accountable. Well, what is your definition of boots on the ground? You listen to him flip and flop. So that's the other portion of it. But the interesting part about why the United States is not doing a better job, or why we do not hear more about a strategy, for instance, where we're saying, look, we're going to cut off the oil, we're going to cut off the refineries, we're going to bomb them. I have two theories, and all they are theories. Number one is I don't know if the United States feels like it can bomb to smithereens the oil refineries, because I think too many people are still dependent on it, even with oil prices too low, and you're destroying the one thing of value in that nation. So I think there's two reasons why they could do it. Now, the next question, of course, is if you've got ground forces there, you wouldn't have to destroy them, but you could take them and you could hold them. And then again, we get back to, I think, the idea of boots on the ground. What would it take, for instance, to not drop bombs and blow up the infrastructure of the one thing of value to anybody, which would be oil. And Syria is not a country that produces oil. It's the transit area for oil, from my understanding. So Iraq is different. Iraq produces oil at a large scale, and they can do that there. In Syria, it's a little bit different. So that we have to keep in mind too. The idea of the oil-producing countries in that region, you're talking about Iraq, you're talking about Iran, you're talking about Saudi Arabia, you're talking about some of the Gulf states, obviously, but not Syria. So there might be some transit, and there certainly is some transit. There's the idea of taking it through Iraq and moving it through Syria. We've certainly heard about that. The criticism of Turkey, for instance, using that as a smuggling pipeline through there. So I think those are probably some of the answers to your question. But thank you for those comments and or the question. And don't forget, you can always email us, or if you've got questions, I would encourage you to go to Facebook where John posted and give him your answer too, because that's kind of what we're trying to do here. No matter where you are, that's just my opinion. But if you've got thoughts on why you think the United States is not doing more to necessarily bomb or cut off the oil lines for ISIS, or how they make their money. In other words, you cut the head of the snake by going after the pocketbook as opposed to their leadership, or I'm saying going after their symbolic capital, Mosul. You can go to voicetoamerica.com and click at Facebook, or go straight to the Facebook page. You can join that discussion. I would also say this past week, we saw Donald Trump offer up a few more details, apparently, of his foreign policy. And he had a big interview with the New York Times. And New York Times is publishing that. And part of what he said was exactly what John brought up. He said, how I would fight ISIS is I would go after their money. And he said, you go after their money, it's mostly oil. I would go after the oil. I've heard this a lot too. I still think my Mosul deal is the better way to go. Because while everybody needs money, I think there are also enough nations and enough wealthy either families or groups or governments that will fund ISIS. And so while oil is part of it, and we know they rob banks and they loot things and they sell on the black market, and oil is certainly one of them. I think symbolically, the biggest problem and the most immediate problem is, how are they able to recruit people from Belgium, for instance, to go take a vacation in Syria and fight and risk their lives down there for 6 months or a year, and then leave the country and risk their way back up to Belgium so they can blow up an airport or a train station? And to me, that doesn't have a whole lot to do with oil. That doesn't have a whole lot to do with the money that may be coming, say, from Gulf nations, or even wealthy individuals who can give them, here's $10 million, go do another campaign. I think a lot of that has to do with symbolism. I think a lot of it has to do with low-level marketing. And by low-level marketing, I don't think it's really expensive bells and whistle marketing. A lot of it's social media marketing. A lot of it is internet marketing, which is not particularly expensive. And so my guess would be you've got to hit them symbolically. That's why I propose, and we're apparently getting close to seeing it, you cut the head off, you try first to take Mosul, because without Mosul, the caliphate does not exist. They become illegitimate. They can't run the PR machine. They can't go on Facebook and say, we're a big bad caliphate. I'm the caliph. My name is Baghdadi and I'm the caliph. Instead, you show them running away from Mosul, getting killed in Mosul by U.S. soldiers or Iraqi soldiers or Peshmerga soldiers, UN soldiers, even Iranian soldiers. And you hoist the flag up, and you take down the ISIS flag. And if they don't have Mosul, what are they? When we come back, we'll go into Egypt and find out what Egyptians think about all of this.
What happened to those New Year's resolutions? Have you gotten off track, or maybe become tired of doing the same routine over